in the morning, you got me up, all cause you need to talk. To 4 in the evening, wanna break up, say that you've had enough. I'm tired of talking, again and again, argue about everything. You are my darling, let's kiss and make up, I know you wanna touch. You call me every night, call me every day, I just wanna get you alone now. Trust me when I say, we gon' be okay, we just gotta boom bada boom ba. I don't wanna fight, you know that I'm right, baby let me talk to your body. We gon' be okay, hear me when I say.
Remember those days, those L's, I couldn't sleep right now. I get paid, vacay, I'm staying B-side. Breaking the blues over steak, I gotta eat right. You could be my peace sign. I don't need that energy around me, I just need sun, you're so cloudy. I wake up good, you're so grouchy. Please get from around me. When the truth don't work, you start telling lies. Thought you were down to ride, you weren't down to ride. Caught switching, you were picking sides. Don't blink, caught slipping like a slip and slide. I was shooting dice till I got a nosebleed. Money on the floor, can't get cold feet. Took a L, should've put it in the offering. Lord, forgive me for my sins, don't know of me. Scary thoughts, I got scary thoughts. Lost control, now I'm taking charge. Breaking bills, friends breaking off. You could be the youngest, I'm the dawn. Kiss the ring, nah. In the scene like G.O.T. Stay awake, don't sleep. Like Jon Snow, get R.I.P. Remember those days, those L's, I couldn't sleep right now. I get paid, vacay, I'm staying B-side. Breaking the blues over steak, I gotta eat right. You could be my peace sign. I don't need that energy around me, I just need sun, you're so cloudy. I wake up good, you're so grouchy. Please get from around me. Just me, myself, and I'm my favorite threesome. The cars I drive by, I never lease them. They say if you can't beat them, then you join them. That's no option, I don't join, I always beat them. I was fake, you had to find me. Now I'm on beat, skating like I'm grinding. L hit me, said it's all about the timing. If you want the vision, get to spinning. My mama told me trust in God, it's never limits. Now I'm on the scoreboard, running up the digits. I put in work, you know I'm up to get it. Early bird gets the worm and the Yankee fitted. Like whoa, bags under my eyes and you know. Won't complain, I'm tired, I'm on go. For that grip, 10 toes till they swole. For that grip, 10 toes till they swole. Remember those days, those L's, I couldn't sleep right now. I get paid, vacay, I'm staying B-side. Breaking the blues over steak, I gotta eat right. You could be my peace sign. I don't need that energy around me, I just need sun, you're so cloudy. I wake up good, you're so grouchy. Please get from around me. I don't want no combo, I want you. I'm all in my swing, I'm alright. I was starving, now I'm eating till my belly full. From up north, we get cold, you need a heavy coat. Scared to end up on the shirt before it's centerfold. Devil on my back, target on me, belly too. Play the keys, don't tweet. It's not peace, don't speak. 24, no sleep. This is real, no tweet. My bros for life, can't break this link. Family on my side, baby stay around me. I don't want no combo, I want checks. I don't want the second, I want this. I'm all in my ass way, I'm a wreck. I've been moving like a hot mess. I don't want no combo, I want checks. I don't want the second, I want this. I'm all in my ass way, I'm a wreck. I've been moving like a hot mess. Want that combo, better know you'll need a check from me. Can pay to play, the sun and still won't get a cent from me. I mix the fit up with the side like it's a remedy. I mix it up inside the pot, watch it drip while it drop. Time to take it to the top. Chips all in the middle like it fall, no I won't flop. We gon' pop like a soda can top. To me this is nothing, call my bluff and I won't stop when I flex. I don't want no combo, I want checks. I want the checks, yeah. I don't want the second, I want best. I want best, yeah. By any means, that's a triple threat. A triple threat. Yeah, this is getting bigger, I might flex. I don't want no combo, I want checks. I don't want the second, I want best. I'm all in my ass way, I'm a wreck. I've been moving like a hot mess. I don't want no combo, I want checks. I don't want the second, I want best. footage up, you can't ignore it. I'm transforming now these cars and planes, I'm always boarding. Just out touring down in Charlotte like I play for Hornets. When I'm performing, never boring, now you can't afford it. Champagne Perrier, Finnish friends on my face, looking like I'm from the deep. These no Cartiers, pockets deep, 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 bro. I can make it in my seat, bro. Do you, I'm doing me, bro. Making noise, use a beat, bro. Whoa, I press the button and the doors go off like, whoa. That money clip us now, the new now looks like, whoa. Upgrade her diamonds, now her girlfriends are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Neighborhood on the scene, neighborhood on the strip, neighborhood be the name, neighborhood no crib, neighborhood that's me, neighborhood that's Nick, neighborhood do the dance, neighborhood do the dip. Okay, thought I'd never make it like no way. I'm the real deal, no role play. My days off, that's no days. No, I hustle hard, young rose. E be the shooter, that's cold case. Those on the deals, that's brose. Got no pay, on no say. Okay, this the news, tell them read it. Been the one since the fetus. Don't sleep on me, Tempur-Pedic. That's a no, no, no. Spending dope for no reason. Got a ball head, Mr. Cleaner. Heard the big bags overseas, then we gon' go, go, go. Whoa, I press the button and the doors go off like, whoa. That money clip us now, the new now looks like, whoa. Upgrade her diamonds, now her girlfriends are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I press the button and the doors go off like, whoa. That money clip us now, the new now looks like, whoa. Upgrade her diamonds, now her girlfriends are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They know, 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 they know. Tunnel vision when I hit the holly. Working on that cause my mind is on an island. Told my babies I'll be homeless, so don't stay up. Breaks my heart to see them sad, so I won't wait up. Need it all that's mine, I need it now. I lost my patience the same week I lost my smile. My baby pressed me, said I'm acting like a child. I took some L's, can lie, that really brought me down. I'm so antisocial, but I guess it's type selected. Swear I'll make a change, but for now I just can't help it. Only trusting God in these scars that I've been dealt with. I'ma do my job, time to grind, time to know. They know, 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 they know. Pedal to the metal, they know. Gone and I won't let up, they know. I'm not so I'm fed up, they know. Stay for the record, they know. They know, they know, they know. Yeah, they know. Pedal to the metal, they know. I'm not so I'm fed up, they know. Why you never sign? You sign when you go live. Stuck inside that bubble, never ever go outside. You don't know you know computers, you're a tech guy. Back against the wall, you gon' fall or you gon' ride. I feel the pressure, foot to the pedal. My dogs, they fed up, my squad won't let up. Those sneakers, CDG, hot on step on. My money, yoga, the weight is stretch on. I change locations to change the weather. Know when that rain come, got my umbrella. And when my day come, my name gon' stay up. Yeah, I know, I know, I know. Pedal to the metal, they know. Gone and I won't let up, they know. I'm not so I'm fed up, they know. Say it for the record, they know. They know, they know, they know. Yeah, they know. Pedal to the metal, they know. I'm not so I'm fed up, they know.
All right, guys, we're going to start in a minute. Thank you to the 12 that are watching. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And we're going to talk about schematically about this Amber Heard situation, because Amber Heard is like the typical modern woman. And with many modern women, it's never their fault. We're going to look at things from a clinical perspective, but also from a sociological perspective. And then we're going to have an open guest of panels as we have a conversation about the things you men have been through in dealing with women like Amber Heard, because many times women like Amber Heard often say it's not their fault. And see, guys, when you're dealing with women like Amber Heard, they often say, it's not their fault. It constantly pushes you on edge as a man. So we're going to have a conversation in a minute. Hold tight. And we're going to make this thing do what it do. So hold tight, guys, as I'm running behind a little bit. But we're going to make it do what it do. And I'm glad you guys are tuning in. I know the game is coming on tonight. And so I know you guys are looking forward to that as well as myself. But in the meantime, guys, we're going to have a powerful conversation on tonight. So the condition, guys, that we have going on now is something called meta madness. It's meta madness because the behaviors that you're seeing now being manifest in the world is not like any thing I've ever seen in human history. But in the meantime, guys, I'm going to read through some of these comments. Thank you, guys. Fire for your mind, no doubt. I appreciate you, the 17 brothers that are watching. We're going to have a powerful show tonight. We're going to talk about, guys, the Amber Heard case. But then talking about the Amber Heard case, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Have you dealt with women that have had borderline personality disorders, histrionic personality disorders, or just personality disorders in general? And have you ever dealt with a woman that's had borderline cluster B personality disorders? It can be very stressful for a man. It can be extremely stressful when you're dealing with women that are cluster B or they have issues with personality disorders. It can be very stressful when you deal with women that have those kind of issues, because many times you think it's you and they're gaslight, but it's not you, it's really them. And so mental wellness is important to a man. Mental wellness is more important than making money. Mental wellness is more important than anything, because if your mental wellness is not intact, then everything else is going to be off kilter. And so you can't be the best version of yourself if you're constantly stressed out. You can't be the man that you want to be if you're constantly in a state of stress. Guys, if you can hear me, please hit 1. If you can hear me, please hit 1. But we're going to talk about the meta madness. Okay, hold tight. Do not turn this on unless you have high quality microphone or wearing headphones. All right, so once again, guys, we're going to have a powerful conversation talking about this Amber Heard case. And I'm going to read through some of the comments. Shout out to everyone. Donald Wayne, he said, fire for your mind. No doubt. Appreciate it, brother. Shout out to LAR Movement. Thank you, LA. I appreciate it, brother, and everyone that's in the group. But we're going to talk about it, guys. Shout out to LAR Movement. He's done an awesome job as he's trying to sponsor men platforms in the manosphere and other male-related content, because we're living in turbulent times when we need to have these conversations. You can't have a more perfect union when you're dealing with mental illness or undiagnosed mental illness that you're not aware of. As I said before, in the past, some of you men have dealt with women that have unresolved or undiagnosed mental illness, and you think it's you. So therefore, you walk around blaming yourself for her pathology. You walk around carrying the burdens of her past, thinking that is you. And see, what you're seeing with many modern women, it's never their fault. It's never their fault when they make bad choices. It's never their fault when they come down to the men that they've chosen in their lives. It's never their fault when they make mistakes or whenever they do something to you. It's never their fault. It's always you. It takes a very wise woman to more or less look within herself and deal with the issues that have impacted her in a negative way. And so you might say, Kosha, why don't you deal with Amber Heard? Well, Amber Heard is typical of many modern women. That's why I told you guys, it's not necessarily a black woman issue. It's a Western woman issue. A lot of Western women actually have behaviors that are synonymous to Amber Heard. And shout out to Gregory Scotland. Gregory Scotland said hello to Chad and Kosha. Another great show I think would be guest material to work on would be the ladies of the Michael B. Jordan and the Lori Harvey situation. Yeah, I heard that. It's never enough, guys. And it's never enough because many of them guys got they got cognitive dissonance. They can't hear what you're trying to tell them. They can't hear that at some point their beauty is going to fade away. They can't hear your pain. They can't hear your pleas. They cannot hear your concerns because they don't see you as being a valuable asset or commodity. The only thing that they can hear are the things that they want. And some of you men, you give it to them because you don't have any standards. You give it to them because you don't love yourself. There was a woman that said, she was trying to shame men and said that, why do men feel that women that have had a lot of partners, their value goes down. And that goes to show you guys how much they actually honor and respect you. Because women of old knew that fair exchange was no robbery. And the fair exchange that men got out of the past were women that were chaste, women that were wife ready, and women that had no children. Those were the women that had premium quality and premium values. But now it appears that when men begin to say what they want and what they deserve or desire, you got women that have cognitive dissonance they can't hear. And they're trying to shame you guys for having standards. I want you guys to look at this clip real quick and tell me what you think. I want you guys to listen to this clip. And I want you guys to see the disruption or the cognitive dissonance that many modern women have. Shout out to the remnant sisters. They're a group of remnant women that are striving to do the right thing in very turbulent times. But those remnant women often are met with a lot of chicanery. They're often met with a lot of ill repair. And so we need women that can hold other women accountable. But it appears when other women strive to hold other women accountable, then there's a level of distress associated with them as well. I want you guys to look at this clip real quick.
Where do men go if they get abused at home by a woman? What refuge or shelters is there for men? Mm-hmm. Do you know? Mm-hmm. I don't even know.
I don't know, I'm not gonna lie.
And that's the problem, bro. We don't know. What service is there for a man who gets stopped seeing his child? What services for him? Other than family court, what kind of service can you get? Help mentally that he's going through depression and stuff?
Because women don't understand what that does to us, man.
None. And that's where the problem actually lies.
Women aren't the only prize. Men are prizes.
Yes, she is. Women are we have intrinsic value. We are the prize. What? Men go to work for women.
Wait, what?
Yeah, why do you go to work? To pay bills for your woman?
No, for myself.
Somehow men think that women lose value when they've had multiple partners.
Quick question. Why is it that women feel men that are 5'11", slightly portly, and make between $40,000 and $65,000 a year have less value than men who are 6'5" with a washboard stomach and $1 million in the bank? Answer that one for me. It's called standards, and both sides do it. That is all.
And that's the problem, guys. That's the issue with the madness. That's the meta madness that we have permeating in this society now. He can't have standards, but she can. And just like Amber Heard is like many modern women. Amber Heard felt that she could abuse Johnny Depp. Amber Heard felt like she could defame the name and the character of Johnny Depp. And Amber Heard, like many, still are in denial because they have cognitive dissonance. They want to hear. They don't want to hear. And like Raekwon the Madman said, and that's on my mama.
Oh, yeah. We can't work the balls on my mom. They be working balls. Kill some on my mom. Bro, they back me like. That's on my mom. That's on my mom. That's on my mom.
Yeah, like Raekwon the Madman said, it's on my mama. And, that's the issues that many men are dealing with in modern times. They can't find a level of reprieve in America because there's a lot of mellow madness. And see, mellow madness is like going down the rabbit hole. Mellow madness is like the Twilight Zone. As time goes on, things begin to get more and more bizarre. You guys are beginning to see things manifest now that I've never seen before in human history. We've never seen, sadly, Western women the way they are now. And when you call them out on their behavior, you know, well, you hate women, you're a misogynist, you know, never taking the time to look within themselves and say, you know what, I was wrong. I respect Security Boss because she said that she realized there was a time when it was shameful to have kids out of wedlock. And she said, you know what, I made a mistake. But when Security Boss called out herself, then there were women that more or less challenged her and called her all kinds of names. And, you know, my heart goes out to some of you young men that don't have wives. My heart goes out to the blue collar brother. My heart goes out to the average guy that's a good guy. He's trying to do the right thing. But every time he does strive to do the right thing, his good best is never good enough. And his best is never good enough because, once again, many of these women have... Yeah, they got cognitive dissonance. Shout out to my dear friend, Sweet Lulu Bean. Glad to hear from you, sweetie. It's been a minute. I'm glad to hear from my dear friend. I will be getting in contact with you from the man, James Turner, at some point. But shout out to Sweet Lulu Bean. Much love and respect to you and your husband and your family. But Sweet Lulu Bean said the Irrational trial highlighted the entitled M2 extremists. Narrative that all men are abusive and believe all women. Yes, ma'am, that's it. And see, like Sweet Lulu Bean, the reason why a lot of women do that because you have male sympathizers that have the spirit of the hyena. And so you can't destroy a matriarchy when you have the spirit of the hyena. You can't destroy a matriarchy where they don't honor and respect men when you got so many male sympathizers that are unconscious simps and they don't even know it. And they continue to more or less permeate that pathology around and spread it to so many other men. And some of you men are dealing with women that have thinking errors. Not only do they have thinking errors, but they also have personality disorders. And we're going to talk about in a minute, then we're going to drop the panel and drop the link to the show. And we're going to have a conversation because if you don't know what to look for, you could be dealing with a woman like Amber Heard, a woman that has personality disorders. And we're going to talk about personality disorders. But in the meantime, guys, get the likes up. I appreciate to the 25 that are watching. If I can get 5 to 10 people to share the stream, I would greatly appreciate it. If you guys like what I'm doing, I know you like it, please share the content. If you have not donated, donate to the channel, donate to Cash App $7Smalls. And we're going to have a powerful discussion on today because I don't want you men to fall down the rabbit hole and get caught up in madness when it comes down to dealing with women that you're not aware of the behavioral traits that could be causing you pain, distress, and mental distress. Shout out to Gregory Scott. He said, we all see it in these spaces, rather in the comment section of panels, women that try to disrupt or create animosity. While I like male content creators who don't allow women to be a problem, no doubt, much respect. No doubt. And so, guys, we're going to have a powerful conversation. We're going to have a powerful conversation on today. But once again, guys, share the stream. And let me get my phone, too, because I don't know what I did with it. But as I said earlier, a lot of these women have cognitive dissonance. They are deaf. Amber Heard is deaf. When you present them with the evidence, they deny the evidence. They become enraged when you present them with the evidence. They argue to ad hominem attacks where they attack the messenger instead of attacking the message. And then they fight or flee because they can't hear what you're trying to say. And see, many modern women have cognitive dissonance because they got cognitive dissonance because they refuse to look within themselves. They refuse to hear sound and critical judgment. They refuse to self-introspect, and they refuse to understand that until they change the error of their way, they'll never be a better person. I'm going to do a show at some point called The Medusa Complex. It's going to talk about the dark triad of Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. And we're going to talk about it because so many women and some men as well have those issues. But because my channel harkens on understanding male issues, that's why I do what I do. Shout out to Jay Perry. He said, Cinema Tide, did you hear Christopher Kerr? She discussed the articles and interview to follow the Johnny Depp victim. The articles and interview are independent of judicial fact. No doubt. Send it to me, Jay Perry. I appreciate it, brother. And that is a deal, right? I really appreciate it. Thank you for the kindness. I'm Jay Perry. I really appreciate it.
Right? That's a
and once
deal,
again,
right?
guys,
That's
thank
a deal,
you
right?
to the 29 that are watching. Thank you. And shout out to the Rogers, the Roger Report. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for what you're doing as you're trying to bring clarity in these very turbulent times when men are suffering in silence, and we're trying to more or less pull the veil off and challenge the cognitive distortions and the cognitive dissidence that many are having in these very perilous times. Shout out to the Roger Report as he's doing features with my man LAR Movement. They're talking about featuring different content creators in these male spaces as we seek to empower men and give men solutions in these very dark hours. So once again, guys, I appreciate it. And I would love to see that whenever you get it. But once again, guys, share the content. I appreciate the 30 that are watching. Let's get this stream up to at least 50 to 100 people tonight. I know the game is coming on, so I said I want to more or less do the show a little earlier so we can give people time to relax and see the game and just enjoy the rest of the weekend. I took a bike ride on the trail to clear my mind a little bit, and I need you guys to clear your minds as well. But guys, once again, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the Amber Heard trial. We're going to talk about how it's never her fault. It's never her fault. It's always your fault. Many times in clinical therapy, we don't assess or understand the thoughts and the feelings that men have. We tend to minimize the struggles of many men. And because of that, I did a show earlier where many men are becoming degrees. They're changing the laws in their mind. Shout out to Mr. Palmer. And many are beginning to go abroad, or many are beginning to more or less adapt something that Coach Greg Adams called the free agent lifestyle. And I think that many of the things that Coach Greg is talking about is on parallel with clearing your mind and more or less having an abundant life. And so many men are beginning to do that. Shout out to my man, Bakura Maximilian. He said that the modern woman is doomed. They want a traditional man, but want to stay modern as men need to keep speaking on this. No doubt, brother. I'm going to keep speaking on it, and I appreciate it. Because men should never suffer in silence. Women should never suffer in silence. But when men are telling their stories and men are telling about their pain, someone needs to hear them, because a hopeless man is a broken man. And a broken man is a very dangerous man. When men become dangerous, they cannot be productive. When men become dangerous, they can become volatile. When men become dangerous due to brokenness and hopelessness, they're more at risk of suicide. And so we got to begin to hear the stories and the struggles of men. My channel is not to more or less minimize the good sisters, because we know there are some good sisters that are striving to do the right thing. But what men are saying, that those numbers are not as high as they should be. And so we can't have a more perfect union when we're not hearing the struggles of our men. So once again, how many of you men have dated women like Amber Heard? What did you get from this this case recently with the Amber Heard fiasco? What resonated in your head? Do you think that the Amber Heard case was a victory for men? Because many times, as Sweet Lulu Bean said, in this M2 culture, many times when men are more or less castigated with the target on their backs, many times folks are not hearing their story or hearing their pain. So what would you guys say about this Amber Heard situation? Have you dated women like Amber Heard? Because as I said before earlier, it's never her fault. It's never her fault. And that's why men are beginning to look for women outside of America with the understanding that women are going to be women, but there are some women that are disciplined with their emotions. There are some women that have been socialized to honor and respect men. I'm going to have my man, the Ingram report on it at some point, and we're going to more or less juxtapose the difference between how American men treat women and how men of the Caribbean, because Ingram is from Bahamas. We're going to juxtapose the two ideologies, because many times men are not hearing and men are not getting their needs met. Men have inherent value and men have inherent worth. So we're going to get right into it, guys. Thank you for the people that have donated. I appreciate it, guys. Let's get the stream popping before the game comes on tonight. And share the stream. And if you have not donated, donate to the channel. Hit me up at Cash Out $7 Smalls. And I want to tell you guys, shout out to James Turner, James Miles, Gregory Scotland, Top Gun. It's all the brothers. You guys, you know, we are a small army, but I appreciate the brothers and the sisters that continue to show love and support. I really appreciate that because this content creation stuff is hard. It's very hard. Don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but it's hard and it's very time consuming. So when you guys feed into me, it gives me the courage to continue to produce good content as I try to be a therapist and try to repair those that are broken. But once again, there's a lot of meta madness going on. Meta means to think about something. Meta madness. There's a lot of meta madness going on. And so meta madness can be derived from the word metacognitions. It means to think about what you're thinking about. And when you see some of the behaviors of modern women, we're not talking about traditional good women. You have to ask yourself the question, what are they thinking about? When you see men continue to allow the bad behaviors of some of these modern women, you ask yourself the question, what was that man thinking about? Because that man is denying his self-worth at the aggrandizement of her. And what men don't understand is this. Women don't respect men. They don't have standards. Women don't respect men. They don't honor and don't love themselves. Women only respect power and strength. Shout out to my man Greg with Scotland once again. He said, Kosher Sage, what Lee was saying earlier today, that black men need to change it up and define things on their own terms, right? And not be allowed to be shame or guilt and to move into a woman's definition, right? And that comment, brother, is savage. And that comment also is fire for your
fire
mind.
for
I
your
agree with
mind.
Sage 1,000%.
The kosher clinician.
I agree with Sage 1,000% because see, people that have personality disorders are very manipulative. People that have personality disorders will many times use reverse psychology to get you to change your mind. They would use gaslighting as a technique to make you change your mind. And that's why you men got to stand firm as masculine men. That's why you got to stand firm on your square. That's why you got to have standards that supersede her temporary feelings and her temporary emotion. Because if you can't change the law in your mind, then she'll never change the law in hers. Shout out to Sweet Lulu Bean. Thank you, dear. I appreciate it. She said the manosphere should formally organize and start challenging sexist laws like unfair child support laws. Depp realized he had no choice but to fight. No doubt, dear. I appreciate it. And that is a deal.
Right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
For that $10 super sticker. Thank you. I appreciate
That's a deal, right?
And you're
That's
right.
a deal, right?
Depp had no choice but to fight. But watch this. Johnny Depp got more resources than the average man. But when men begin to band together, when men come together for a common cause, because there is a crisis in heteronormative masculinity, that men can form a more perfect union and get their needs met in a more judicial way. But when men suffer in silence, when you men don't talk or speak out against the injustices that are going on, then you have a mental health crisis because now you are at the mercy of a very violent woman. Now you're at the mercy of a woman that does not honor and respect you as a man. And when you don't get the honor and respect as a man, guess what? She's going to put you in a predicament that can cause you to have a mental health crisis.
Put chain on the balls on my mom. They be broken balls. Kill some of my mom, bro. They back me look like gang. That's on my monkey. Gang. That's on my monkey. Gang. That's on my mom.
Yeah, that's on my mama, like Raekwon the Man be saying. Because until you change the law in your mind, then she's not going to change the law in her mind. Shout out to my man, the Roger Report. I appreciate it, brother. He said, support the Black Manosphere Show of the Week. Put a little something financial to the wood. Salute to the host. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. To the Roger Report. And I appreciate this movement that you're trying to do is you're trying to get other content creators noticed and notified. And it takes a cadre of men to support one another because you are a content creator like myself, and you realize that these shows are very time consuming, and that's a deal. I appreciate it, man. Thank you, sir.
That's a deal, right?
I appreciate it.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Got 5 on it.
All right. Now, we're going to get right into it. We're going to break it down because I don't want you guys to be victims of women like Amber Heard. I don't want you guys to be victims of women that have caused distress and cause you pain. Shout out to my man Top Gun. He said, I'm starting to see the granny chameleons and slowly start to shed and show their true color on them Celtics. funny. I appreciate it, man. But I got a show coming up, guys. It's going to be dope. It's going to be talking about the Medusa complex. It's going to be very comprehensive because most modern women, you got to look at them with a level of suspicion. That's why modern women attack women like Sweet Lulu Bean and other traditional American women, because they expose them for what they are. The thing I can love about a woman like Sweet Lulu Bean and other sisters, they own that they have issues. They say, I got to continue to work on myself. That's a wise woman. That's a godly woman, because that woman is aware of her shortcomings. She's aware of her nature. And she has to bring her nature under subjection to what's right in order to be the woman that's necessary to please her man and also her community. That's why I said that only a spiritual woman that's walking in the spirit has the power to supersede the turbulence that's constantly going on here in America. But those women often are shamed and chided because folks nowadays don't want to hear the truth, because, as I said before, guys, many have cognitive dissonance. They have cognitive dissonance. They got cognitive dissonance because they can't hear what men are trying to say, and many don't care about what men want and what men desire. I'm going to share this, guys, and we're going to break it down, because I don't want you to be a victim of a woman that has personality disorders. I don't want you to be a victim of a woman that has personality disorders, because if you deal with it, it could drive you crazy. If you're dealing with a woman that has personality disorders, it can make you go crazy, all right? And we don't need that. All right, so hold tight. We're going to talk about it, guys. Hold tight. Give me 1 minute. Shout out to my man. Hold on, guys. All right, so personality disorders. Personality disorders. Personality disorders are maladaptive behaviors that are normally against the rules of society, that start at a young age and carry on into adulthood, often from trauma, abandonment, and abuse. Many of these young men that you guys see in the city have personality disorders. Many times it starts off as oppositional defiant disorder. Then it goes to something more insidious called conduct disorder. Conduct disorder is more severe than opposition defiant disorder. But from there, guys, it goes to something called antisocial personality disorders, where they have a disdain for rules, they have a disdain for order. And that's what you're seeing many times in the city, but also in the suburbs. They have undiagnosed personality disorders. And because of those personality disorders, guys, it's causing social havoc in our communities. When you live in a world that's devoid of community, when you live in a world that's devoid of masculine authority and masculine order, then your kids become victims to the wolves. There are a lot of wolves in this society. Many of the wolves are in the form of social media. Many of the wolves are in the form of liberal dogmas. Many of the wolves are in the form of peer pressure. And so when you don't have fathers to guide these turbulent kids, and also some of these young women, then it causes a disruption in the force or a disruption in the community. But watch this. Having a father in the home is no guarantee that a kid won't go astray. Having a mother is not a guarantee. Families, or having intact family, is not a guarantee, because at one point in the past, it was the family, it was the community, and it was a strong church. But now, many times, it's just a strong family. So now that strong family got to fight against all the social influence that's negative that could be impacting their child in a negative way. I'm going to send a special shout out to my man, Gregory Scotland. Man, you guys have shown me some love. I appreciate it, brother. Hold tight. Gregory said that the Johnny Depp verdict was a powerful blow to the Me Too and the gynocracy. By this loss, this is a total smear job of the manosphere. And that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? I appreciate that. That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? I appreciate all the love and support of everyone that's listening to the stream on today. Thank you, guys. Sweet Lulu Bean said, kosher, our son husbands of mental disorder on the part of single black mothers emotionally manipulating their sons? Yeah, that's a good question, sweet Lulu Bean. It could be some mental pathologies going on boards of the son husbands, no doubt. It's definitely a form of arrested development. It's definitely what we call in the clinical world a condition called enmeshment. So yes, it is a form of mental unrest or mental distress, because boys should never be enmeshed as being providers of taking care of their moms. And I had a situation that happened I had a situation that happened in my office where the young man felt like he had to be there for his mom. He had to hold her down. And it's never a son's responsibility or a daughter's responsibility to hold their parents down. Parents should be guiding their children. Parents should be directing their children. Parents should be giving their children hope. But see, now these babies don't have hope because, a lot of these modern women, you can't tell them that, it's your fault. And anytime you say anything, then, it's a problem. They get mad. They'll say you're misogynistic, your mama's black, and all kinds of goofy stuff to derail them for taking accountability for their bad behavior. And that's what's wrong with our community now, because there's no more shame and there is no more accountability. So that's an excellent question, sweet Lulu Bean. You're right, Top Gun. It's called the Oedipus Complex. I'm going to do a show at some point called Rise of the Son Husband. So be on the lookout for that show. I'm going to do a powerful show talking about that. It's been in my mind for a while. And I'm going to do a powerful show talking about the rise of the son husband. Because you guys will be surprised. I had a situation, I'm going to tell you guys about a situation I had. And there was a situation where the mom, actually, guys, she had a son. And I didn't say anything, but it was weird because the young boy had his mom's name tattooed on his arm. His name was tattooed, her name was tattooed on his arm, almost like Jane Doe and John Doe. Both names, he had his mom named like that was his girlfriend. But something else that really shocked me is when the mom had the name of her son on the back of her car. So he had his name tattooed on her arm like they were lovers, but then she had his name and her name on the back of their license plate. And I had never seen nothing like that. That was weird. That was the strongest form of what I call enmeshment, but also what some would call incestuous looking behavior. Because imagine if a father said, my daughter is my little woman. Or a father had his daughter's name tattooed on his arm. Right, D? That's strange. It's very strange. But, we live in a guidance-centric culture where sadly many of our women are not held to any level of accountability. And when masculine men begin to speak up, then it's always a problem. And that's why we got to continue to stand firm as men. That's why we got to continue to have these conversations, because so many men are suffering in silence and so many don't have any way to talk about their distress or their pain. All right, so once again, it's a maladaptive behavior that are normally against the rules of society that start at a young age and carry on into adulthood, often from trauma, abandonment, and abuse. People that have personality disorders sometimes are the byproduct of physical abuse. They go through attachment issues with abandonment, but also the greatest forms of personality and histrionic personality disorders can come from sexual abuse. And that's why women and men should be very careful when they allow people to come into the lives of their children, because some of these people are molesting and touching these young boys and girls. I've said before in the past that child abuse, child sexual abuse is a genderless crime. People tend to equivocate or assume that it always happens to girls, but it doesn't. It happens to a lot of boys as well. It's genderless, but when it comes down to the struggles and the pains of a lot of our men, we tend to minimize the struggles and the pains of our men. We tend not to give our men the same level of credence and resolve that we give our women. And so it causes a lot of distress and consternation for our children because our kids are not protected. Kids are at their best when they're in situations where they can feel like they are protected. But a lot of these babies are not protected because, some of these women, when they get in relationships, they got to always have a man. They can't take a break away from, some call the phallus carousel. And these girls are at risk when they bring these men in, and these boys are at risk as well, because sometimes not only do the women touch these boys, but sometimes the women touch the girls as well, or in the reverse. The men touch the boys and the girls. And sometimes these grown women are doing heinous things to these little boys. And it's sad and it's disturbing. That's why, a lot of times predators, when they have strong men in the home, they won't, they'll flee away because men symbolize power and they symbolize strength. And so when these little boys have strong fathers in the home, they feel safe and they feel at peace. But a child can't feel at peace when they don't have structure and order. And who's to say that Amber Heard was not a victim of the things that I'm talking about, the psychopathologies that I'm talking about? Who's to say that Amber Heard was not a victim of the same thing? And that's why, once again, guys, we need to have strong homes, strong families, and strong communities. But sadly, I don't see it ever coming back into fruition in these modern times, because anytime you try to give any level of critique, many become mad, many become angry, and many don't want to hear, sadly, the truth. Shout out to my man, Dope Law. He said that, do you believe men should have women like concubines or women strictly for intimacy and relations, or should you focus on success and God and entrepreneurship and all those other areas? Also, hold tight. He said, also, do you read Sirach and Proverbs? I've read Proverbs. That's an interesting question, Dope Law, and that's a deal, right? I appreciate it.
That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
Question.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
I grew up in the church, and I know under Old Testament law, it was permitted for men to have concubines. But if you're trying to live a strict life in a strict way pleasing unto God, then, the gospel says that from the beginning of time, God allowed concubines, but it was never his perfect will. It was his permissive will. And it's always been said that men should have one woman for life. But we live in modern times, and it's hard to replicate that. So you have to more or less let your conscience be your guide. I would say strive to focus on yourself, be a servant to God. And if you find a noble woman, handle that. But I do understand what some men are saying. They just have concubines. They have a rotation. So it depends on your religious beliefs. Some say that, it's fornication. But it's up to you. Every man got to let his conscience be his God. That's the way I look at it. But concubines were allowed. And sadly, many of these modern women are nothing but concubines because they want to get it in just like you. They see you as a concubine. Sadly, some of these women see you guys as a concubine. But I appreciate it, Dope Law, for that $20 super sticker.
It's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
And thank you to the 36 for watching.
Right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
The game comes on tonight. But I really appreciate you guys supporting the stream, supporting the chat. I know there's several content creators running at the same time, but I really appreciate you guys. The contributions really help. Shout out. He said my birthday donation today got 58 sit-ups to do. You're bringing that fire for your mind. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, MC Ricardo.
Fire!
Awesome brother.
For your mind.
The stream. And I appreciate it, man. But we're going to get right back to the topic because, that's the issue with personality disorders. Hold tight. All right. Common personality disorders, the ones that we're going to be talking about today as we talk about the Amber Heard situation, are borderline personality disorders and histrionic personality disorders. But as I said before earlier, guys, the meta matters that we see makes you ask yourself the question, what were they thinking about? And as I told you guys before earlier, they can't hear because they can't hear. They can't hear. They can't see. And they don't want to do the right thing. And the more you present them with the evidence, they fight you. They fight you, or they go into a cognitive break. They don't want to hear the truth. Neither do they want to see it, because similar to what theology said in the latter times, he said people will not love the truth. People began to rejoice at the death of Kevin Samuels, which was sad. And you don't have to agree 100% with him, or you don't have to agree 100% with me. But he spoke more truth than anything. And what you're seeing now, guys, is that the world has become so wicked that you can present evidence to people and people are still questioning you like you have a problem. And also, guys, if someone's giving me cash apps, I don't have my phone with me. So please forgive me if I don't call your name out. I'm trying to run the stream by myself, but I appreciate it, guys. But the ones that we're going to talk about today, guys, is borderline personality disorders, histrionic personality disorders. But we're going to talk about the antisocial one. We talked about that earlier. Dependent personality disorders often come from abandonment issues. It's normally people that have abandonment issues, the ones that have dependent personality disorders. Narcissistic personality disorders often come from abuse. It comes from abandonment. It comes from having a very fragile ego. Narcissistic personality disorders often happen in men. More men have narcissistic personality disorders than women, but women tend to have borderline personality disorders. And personality disorders, guys, are often undiagnosed in our community because, once again, in our community, we don't believe in therapy. We minimize it because we don't understand it. And we say, therapy is for white folks, we're going to let Jesus pray it away. And while faith is part of it, you need more than faith. Can God fix it through spiritual recognition? Sure, he could if he chose to. But that's why he have teachers and doctors and lawyers like everybody else, So therapists are part of God's sovereignty. And so therapists are mental health doctors. And a lot of people now, guys, are going through mental health crisis. But narcissistic personality disorders, they tend to have a very grandiose personality. They tend to have a very fragile ego. They get upset through something called a narcissistic injury. When you present them with the evidence, they get mad and get in their feelings. Many need a narcissistic supply in order to feel good about themselves because they present themselves like they're a lion, but they're really just a kitten. They're just a kitten. And many people that have narcissistic personality disorders, they're very manipulative, and they gaslight and they try to flip things back on you through manipulation. So you have to be very careful because there are a lot of people that have unresolved mental illness. Obsessive personality disorder is totally different than compulsive disorder. Obsessive personality disorder is a thinking error, but obsessive compulsive disorder is more of something organic. And then you have what's called the avoidant type. But back to narcissistic personality disorder and dependent personality disorders, that comes from children that have a lot of issues with abandonment. They have what's called how can I say it? They have a very disinhibited attachment style. They don't feel comfortable unless they have somebody around them. And once again, guys, when children are going through their different stages of psychosocial development, they need to have the proper people in their lives to nurture them. But so many of these babies now are being raised in homes where they're left unattended. Some of these women are living their lives where they're dropping the kids off and from these dusty men that they had babies with. And these kids are left by themselves and left to the wolves. But when kids have fathers, they're not left to the wolves. And that's a problem. And that's an issue. Sweet Lulu Bean said that dope law, the problem that man need to figure out is how to protect his seed. Don't let any woman have access to your legacy to use your seed as a financial crutch. I agree with you 1,000% there. You're 1,000% correct. Indeed, protect his seed at all costs, no doubt. I totally agree. MC Recovery said that cognitive disorder showing a woman logical reality and fixing them to understand. That's why so many get angry. Sweet Lulu Bean said, Kosher, in your opinion, does Amber Heard have a disorder? If so, does she have a disorder to excuse the abuse? That's an excellent question, Sweet Lulu Bean. Excellent question. And yes, she was diagnosed, and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to let it be a surprise. That's an excellent question. Does it excuse it? Well, let me say this. Very good question. Excellent question, by the way. So in the clinical world, the clinical and the criminal world, we have something called forensic psychology, right? And so in the criminal world, we ask ourselves the question, what was the intent? Does the intent supersede the mental health crisis or disorder? If the mental illness supersedes the crime, then, the person's not culpable. But if the mental illness does not supersede the crime, then the person is culpable. I'm going to give you an example. Some call him the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this, and he asked the question. He said that there was a young woman that was complicit in carnal fun and carnal pleasure. but she had a low IQ. She was mentally retarded. So the question was asked, Sweet Lulu Bean, did she have sex under the bleachers where no one could see it, or did she have sex out in the open for the world to see? The person that had it, she didn't have sex out in the open. She had sex under the bleachers. So therefore, even though she had a low IQ, she had enough sense to know that what she was doing was wrong. And as Bishop Charles D. Williams said, y'all ain't gonna talk to me. So hopefully that answers your question. It depends on their level of intent. Intent will determine if the person is culpable, but also complicit, Sweet Lulu Bean, in the malfeasance that they're more or less exhibiting at the time of the action that occurred. So hopefully that will answer your question, dear. Thank you. Excellent question, by the way. Excellent question. Excellent question, dear. Excellent question. And Dope Law, thank you once again, brother. I hope I answered your question too, Dope. Sir, I appreciate it. And then, guys, the avoidant personality disorder. Those people normally have anxiety issues. They avoid anything that requires them to change or more or less to make adjustments. Then you have the paranoid personality disorder. They have what's called a syntonic ego. They think what they're seeing is what they're supposed to see. A paranoia comes from suspicion. They're always suspicious that somebody's out to get them. You know, it's paranoia. And so they're always out, that somebody's out to get me, and they're always looking at things through the lens of suspicion. But that was a great question, Sweet Lulu Bean. Thank you, dear. All right, so let's go to the next one. All right. This one is very powerful. Now, Sweet Lulu Bean, you asked the question, did I think that Amber Heard had mental illness? Yes, she did. Amber Heard was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Amber Heard was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I want to ask you guys a couple of questions because it's in the cluster B category. Have you ever dated a woman that you think or you knew had borderline personality disorders? If you have, you're on the rail for a ride because borderlines are very hard and difficult to treat, to the point that many therapists don't want to treat them because they're hard to treat. Borderlines have black and white thinking. That's why I use the black and white thinking. They have what's called cognitive splits. They do a lot of disassociating. They cannot see gray. You and I can see gray, but borderlines only see black or white. They can't see anywhere in the middle. And many times that's due to sexual abuse and sexual trauma, where they were traumatized. They had a cognitive break. Some develop dissociative personality disorders as well. But also they go through a condition called depersonalization. When they're going through the trauma, they become numb. They feel like they're having an out-of-body experience. And they feel like it's almost like their ego has to shut down because they can't deal with the trauma that they're dealing with. And then some have what's called derealization. It's almost like it's surreal. They can't believe that it's happening. And that tends to turn into post-traumatic stress disorder. So sometimes a borderline can have PTSD and borderline personality disorder setting. Hold tight, guys. But hold tight as I try to send this. Hold tight. Give me 1 minute as I get all this stuff together. All right. So borderlines have black and white thinking. They cannot see gray. Many have a fear of abandonment. Let me turn this fan on, guys. Hold on. They are highly manipulative. If you ever dealt with a woman that's borderline, she's very manipulative. Amber Heard was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. They often have an empty feeling. They often feel empty. And I'm gonna tell you something. If you ever dealt with a woman that's borderline or a man, the sex is incredible. They feel that emptiness through sex. They feel that emptiness through sex. They often use sex to fill a void. Once again, they are victims of trauma. They deal with, as I said earlier, the personalization and the realization. It's often seen in women more than men as antisocial behavior. It's often very compulsive. They got to get into it. They got to constantly get into it. They got to always have something to fill that void. And many times, guys, if you're dealing with a woman that's borderline, she'll sabotage the relationship because she feel like, well, if I get rid of that person before they get rid of me, it's a win for me, because many times people that are borderline, they feel powerless. And so many borderlines are treated, guys, through a condition called dialectical behavioral therapy. But borderline people with borderline personality disorders are very hard to treat. They're very hard to treat. And many times, many never get the help that they need because they don't think that anything is wrong. It's called a syntonic ego. Now, borderlines tend to get better with time. They get better with time. But in general, borderlines are very hard to treat. They get better with age, but they're very difficult to treat because they think what they're doing is right. And that, like I said earlier, the clinical term for that is a syntonic ego. A dystonic ego means what I'm feeling, I shouldn't feel the way that I'm feeling. But with a syntonic ego, often seen in delusional personality disorders, they think that what they're feeling is how they should feel. Well, I take that back. Normally, well, in some cases, it can probably be both, but you guys get the drift. But Amber Heard was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And a lot of men have dealt with women that have these disorders. If you have dealt with a woman that has borderline personality disorder, it can be very problematic. They have a lot of issues with mood swings. They have a lot of issues with guilt and loneliness. They have a very distorted image of themselves. When they look in the mirror, they see themselves as something broken. They see themselves as broken because due to the trauma, we call it a cognitive break. And so, they don't feel good about themselves. They have a lot of push and pull behavior. They'll draw you in with sex, and then they'll push you away. They're highly manipulative, and they gaslight a lot. And a borderline will run you crazy. If you ever dealt with a man or a woman with borderline personality disorders, they will run you crazy, man or woman. But the disorders tend to be more seen in women. Narcissistic personality disorders are seen more in men. Borderline personality disorders are seen more in women. Cortez Smith said Amber Heard was married to a woman. Most rainbow people have a diagnosis. Yeah, I've heard that as well too. Oh, okay. Yeah, please, guys, hit all notifications. I'm sorry. How you doing, Luke Hazley? If you guys have phones, go to your phones, hit the all notifications on your phone. If you don't hit the all notification, you're not going to get a preview when the show is coming on. So please hit all notifications. If you got your phones right now, or even on your computer, but mostly on your phone, you go to the very top, you hit the bell where it says all notifications. Many times people are watching the stream, you have not subscribed to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Help me grow this channel and get the conversation out on mental wellness. Because many of you men are dating women with undiagnosed and unresolved mental illness. So, guys, if you have hit the all notification button, hit one. I need all 34 that have hit the all notification button. Please hit one, because many times the show come on, people say they're not getting the notification. So please hit one. And thank you again, Luke Hazley, for watching the stream. Thank you. All right. So, hold tight. All right. Also, Amber Heard was diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder. She was diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder. Now, you might say, what is that? Well, histrionic personality disorder is also part of cluster B, and it's women that love being the center of attention. Once again, I'm not saying that Madonna or Cardi B have that, but I use them as a reference point because they're very seductive in how they conduct themselves. And I know a lot of women just do that for the sake of attention, but they love being the center of attention. They dress provocatively to seduce men. It's often seen in women. They have shifting and shallow emotions. They think the relationships are closer than they really are. They act submissive to get attention of others, and they have exaggerated emotions. So Amber Heard has borderline personality disorder, but also Amber Heard has histrionic personality disorders. And many of you guys are dating women that have personality disorders, and you're not even aware of it. You're asking yourself the question, I know I'm not crazy, but they have such a way of manipulating you. They'll make you think that you're crazy and what they're doing is right. And once again, guys, that's led to a condition called meta madness. Meta madness. And meta madness means, what were they thinking about? Meta madness, what are they thinking about? And that's what you're seeing now. You ask yourself the question, what were you thinking about when you got with them? And like I said earlier, guys, many of these women have cognitive. They have cognitive dissonance. They cannot hear. And they're not going to listen to what you're saying because they don't think anything is wrong with them. And when you're dealing with a woman that has borderline, it's best to leave the relationship because you're going to be in for a rodeo. You're going to be in for a rodeo. And many times, borderlines don't even know. Some will say, well, is it fair to accost borderlines because they don't know? Well, once again, it depends on their intention. It depends on their level of consciousness. There are many room up for debate for that. But that's the issue with histrionic personality. So she was diagnosed with two. So this was the court case or the court trial where the psychologist actually diagnosed Amber Heard and her meta madness. And this is fair use, guys. So fair use as I seek to bring forth education and fair use. So hopefully, fair use. So I want you guys to listen to this case where the psychologist diagnosed. This is the woman that diagnosed her. And I want you guys to listen.
Regularly to supervise them, discuss their cases, provide them with information about different diagnoses, interventions, and treatment methods.
How did you get involved in this case?
I was contacted by Ms. Camille Vasquez, one of the attorneys for Mr. Depp.
Okay, and what was the nature of the contact?
Ms. Vasquez called me and indicated that she might be interested in having me meet the legal team so that I could discuss my expertise and possibly provide my opinions related to the matter.
Yeah. What were you asked to provide expert opinion on?
So initially, my role that I understood at the time was to review the case materials and provide my opinions regarding anything that I noticed that was consistent.
So Sweet Lulu being asked the question, kosher, is delusional and entitlement of modern women a disorder? For example, when a woman gets upset for what Black Manosphere stands for. Excellent question once again, Sweet Lulu being. Excellent question. It's not necessarily a disorder per se. It could be a disorder like in narcissistic personality disorder. You have to look at every case for case. But let's start at the less extreme. The less extreme, Sweet Lulu Bean, would be thinking errors. The thinking error of the minimization of masculinity. And also the thinking error of the magnification of her and her own selfish needs. Also, it could be overgeneralization. It could be generalization. It could be unresolved trauma. It could be post-traumatic stress. So you will have to listen to each person and hear their story. But I would say that I do believe that some of it on the lesser end is just basic thinking errors. Human beings can have thinking errors and not have a bona fide diagnosis. But I would be remiss to say that there are some that not only do they have unresolved mental illness, and I can think of a few like Monique and also maybe Tasha K, but they also have a disdain for men based on the trauma that they went through as children. So the lesser end, thinking errors without a bona fide diagnosis. But on the higher end, yes, they could have unresolved mental illness that they never got treated for. And that's why they have a lot of disdain for men. And also, Sweet Lulu Bean, a lot of it could be just a pure hatred because they never seen men in the home. I would say Cynthia G is like that. You know, she never had a good relationship with her father. She does a lot of projection, in my opinion, a lot of overgeneralization. She has a lot of cognitive dissonance. But, you know, human beings can have what's called temporary anxiety, but it doesn't mean that they have bona fide anxiety, if that makes sense. So, guys, once again, get the stream popping. Thank you for everyone that have donated. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. And we're going to finish this conversation. Thank you, Sweet Lulu Bean. Awesome question again.
Or even inconsistent with the psychological science that exists today on intimate partner violence in Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's relationship.
All right, you used a phrase there, intimate partner violence. What are you talking about?
So there are a multitude of different definitions depending on the source or the state, but essentially intimate partner violence is abuse. It could be physical, psychological, and it's from one partner to another in an intimate relationship.
And Gregory, you said something that's very powerful. Gregory said it's the fact that the feminists are doing everything to make Amber a complete victim, part of a disorder for them that are promoting the idea. Yes, it could be. It could be delusional personality disorders. Because, see, when a person's delusion, they think what they see is what they're supposed to see. But also it could be just a condition based on how the world is being shaped. Now, I need you guys to listen. There are many things that shape the mental wellness of a human being. One could be intrinsic, which is nature. But then also it can be extrinsic, which is nurture. And so what you're seeing for some of these women that are more or less trying to aggrandize Amber Heard could be just the shaping of what they've been through from a sociological perspective. Because some of these women have unresolved mental illness, perhaps it could be a disorder. But many times it's just thinking errors. A thinking error does not necessarily necessitate a disorder, if that makes sense. But great question, Greg. Great question.
Did your role in this case evolve over time?
Yes, it shifted. So I was retained at the end of January 2021, and then had just barely begun to review the documents. The case was postponed, and then in October 2021, I was asked by counsel to provide a psychological evaluation of Ms. Heard.
Were you ever asked to do a psychological evaluation of Mr. Depp?
No.
Okay.
What types of documents did you consider in this analysis?
So I reviewed quite a few documents as part of my evaluation. That included all of the case documents, Ms. Heard's medical records by Dr. Kipper, her prior mental health treatment.
And see, guys, that's what's happening now. So many have gone down the rabbit hole. That's what's happening now. You see the moniker of meta madness. Meta madness is black and white thinking. It can't see gray. And we live in a world, guys, as I said earlier in the stream, where, you know, people have meta madness because they can't see gray. They can only see black and white. And that's a sign of a mental disorder, but also a thinking error. And when a person can only see black and white and can't see gray, then that person is very dangerous, because everything is not always black and white. Sometimes you can see both sides. But sadly, many in this world, especially that have very extreme liberal views, they can't see the gray. They can only see black and white. And many times that's disassociative thinking. And when a man is dealing with women, when women are dealing with dangerous men, but because my channel advocates for men,
it becomes very problematic when a person cannot see how they brought pain to themselves for their lack of self-reflection.
Records, I believe I reviewed records from Dr. Amy Banks, Dr. Bonnie Jacobs, Dr. Connell Cohen, and also a significant portion of my review involved notes from nurse Erin Filati, at the time Erin Borum, who spent a significant time with Ms. Heard in her direct company. I also reviewed exhibits, quite a few audio recordings, a video recording, several video recordings, or possibly photographs, I might be getting them confused, and multiple witness statements, testimony, and declarations.
Did there come a time when you met directly with Ms. Heard?
Yes, I did. So in conducting my evaluation, I met with Ms. Heard on 2 separate dates, December 10th and December 17th, 2021.
Approximately how much time have you spent with Ms. Heard?
So the evaluation, we spent 12 hours directly with one another. However, there were more hours involved in the evaluation with some breaks. So we spent 7 hours together on the first day, December 10th. Not necessarily together, because there was a 1 hour lunch break and about a half hour break split up through the day. And then on the 17th, we spent a little more than 8 hours.
Oh my goodness. Shout out to Sweet Lulu Bean for that $10 super sticker. Hold tight. She said, Kosher, it's known that Amber Heard's dad was jailed for running a dog fighting ring, bloody death matches. Do you think knowing that her father did that could affect her mental health in any way? And that's a deal, right?
That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Got 5 on it.
So that's an excellent question, Luke Case. An excellent question. Could she have been traumatized from seeing her dad fight dogs incessantly? Perhaps, because there's a correlation, Luke Caisley, between borderline personality disorder and also post-traumatic stress disorder. We call it comorbidity, meaning it's 2 major issues coalescing at the same time. So it's possible, but dog fighting normally does not cause borderline personality or histrionic personality disorder. Normally, women that are borderline have been sexually abused. So could she have been through some residual levels of trauma because of that? Yes. But dog fighting precisely, in my mind, in my opinion, from a clinical perspective, did not cause Amber Heard to have borderline personality disorder or histrionic personality disorder. So awesome question. And thank you, dear, for that $10 super sticker. Thank you, ma'am.
In the evaluation from start to finish, with a 1 hour break and another half hour of breaks distributed throughout the day.
As a result of the work that you performed, did you form any opinions with respect to Ms. Heard?
I did.
What were those opinions?
The results of Ms. Heard's evaluation supported 2 diagnoses, borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality.
So you guys saw it. They diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder, which is due to incessant trauma. But also they diagnosed her with histrionic personality disorder. That's the need to have attention, to dress provocative. Some of these women, guys, that you're dealing with have histrionic personality disorder, but also borderline. Once again, as I said earlier, borderlines are very seductive, highly manipulative. They have you thinking that you're crazy, and they do a lot of gaslighting. And they gaslight by, trying to get you to change your perception of what you know that you saw, almost like reverse psychology to some degree. So she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder by the psychologist and histrionic personality
disorder.
What is a diagnosis?
A diagnosis is a way that that psychologists, psychiatrists, anybody in the mental health field thinks about a disorder. It helps us to communicate a set of symptoms that a person is experiencing, and along with that set of symptoms, it tells other professionals a lot about how those symptoms might have developed, how that person might behave, perceive the world. It also drives treatment. The real purpose is to determine what sort of interventions will be most effective for the person.
Yeah. Previously, you made reference to, I think you called it the DSM-5. What's that?
So the DSM-5, that stands for the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, version 5, and that contains every diagnosis we use in mental health, and it's the authoritative manual of mental diagnoses.
Is performing diagnoses something you typically do in your line of work?
Yes.
Thank you. So you referenced two personality disorders. What's a personality disorder?
To understand a personality disorder, I think it can be helpful first to kind of define personality. So personality, something we take for granted, but these are the traits, the characteristics, the way we think, we feel, and we act that make us who we are. And these traits are pretty stable over time and across situations. We might, be sure to mind our P's and Q's when we're meeting somebody new, but overall, if somebody were to describe us or if we were to describe ourselves, we have a pretty good sense of who we are. Sometimes an easy way to think of it is imagining how you might describe a brother or sister or a child if you have children. Their personalities are pretty clear to you. A personality disorder is some sort of dysfunction in those enduring traits. So as opposed to other types of mental illness, when you think about something like depression, that's episodic. It comes and it goes, and when it's treated with medication, it can pretty much be completely mitigated or minimized in a person's life, and their personality is still there, separate from the depression. When we have a personality disorder, there are going to be disturbances in several different areas that are visible in almost all different facets of their life.
Is there a manner in which personality disorders are commonly diagnosed?
Yes, so they can be diagnosed in a treating environment. Treating psychologist or a therapist or a psychiatrist simply does a diagnostic interview, which involves assessing multiple areas of a person's history back down through childhood.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Yes.
What's a treating environment?
Sometimes I'll slip into these words, I apologize. So a treating environment, in therapy, if somebody is going in for treatment, the mental health provider will ask them questions to find out what sort of symptoms they've experienced and what sort of things have occurred in their life that might be consistent with these disorders, or rule out these disorders, prove that there's no reason for these disorders to be considered.
So once again, a personality disorder, in a more clinical term, is something that's maladaptive. It's a brokenness in a person's personality. When she's talking about mood disorders, that's something that's more organic, but also it could be due to the environment, but normally it's situational. Mood disorders tend to be organic, but personality disorders are byproducts of trauma many times, and also attachment styles.
They might also pay attention to their observations of the client over time and new information the client provides them. The most reliable way, however, to ever come about a diagnosis really is through a comprehensive psychological assessment. And I might use the words assessment, examination, testing interchangeably. They all mean the same thing. It's combining information from multiple different sources. One main source is psychological testing using validated objective measures. That means that they've been tested, they've been shown to be accurate for testing what you want to test, and in the environment you're testing. So there are measures specific for court environments where someone might respond differently. You integrate that with the same interview I was telling you that people would do for therapy. We do that as well. And then in a courtroom setting, you're going to look at all the legal records, all of those documents, corroborating information to sort of check your hypotheses that may be developing, and also check against the examinee's statements to confirm whether you have enough evidence of a certain diagnosis.
So what's a clinical interview?
A clinical interview is a very comprehensive interview. It includes a person's entire life history, as well as very specifically looks at any symptoms they might have. This can start as far back as birth. You might find out if there were any issues with their delivery, any genetic issues, any intellectual issues. How did they do? What was their home life like? How was discipline handled? What's their relationship with their primary caregivers? Were they raised by an aunt, an uncle, their parents? How many siblings do they have? How do they get along with their siblings? How many times did they have to move? Was there any abuse? Did they have any really significant life experiences that come to mind when they think about their childhood? How were they as a student? Did they need special services? Did they get in trouble at school? And you do this, you continue on high school. What were their hobbies? Did they play sports? How many friends did they have? Did they have any trouble keeping those friendships? Then you get into adulthood. Did they go to college? Did they not go to college? How come? What sort of jobs have they held? How did those jobs go? How did they end? That's always an important question. What sort of romantic relationships have they been involved in? How do they identify sexually, culturally? Let's see, what else? What sort of symptoms have they experienced? You go through the entire gamut of some of the main symptoms. You might screen for depression, any disorganized thinking, that means thinking that isn't necessarily in touch with reality, and any current distress they may be having today.
How did you conclude that Ms. Heard suffers from the personality disorders that you identified?
So there was information that supported it from multiple sources. I conducted testing, including one of the main tests that I used. She obtained scores that were consistent with those diagnoses. And then I also, there was evidence of those diagnoses in her records and in her self-report.
Okay.
All right, Council, why don't we just go ahead and pause for a second while we go ahead and take our morning recess. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and take our 15-minute morning recess. Do not discuss the case and do not do any outside research, okay?
And for a woman to do or did what Amber did, defecating on a man's bed, is a sign of a woman in a lot of distress, in my opinion. But also a woman that's very unclean to have conducted something
Your Honor,
like
would
it.
you like to reconvene?
Give me a moment, sir.
All right. So, you guys saw it. I saw it. You guys saw it. Amber Heard, she is the typical modern woman. Not my fault. Traditional women are far and few in between. We don't have them like we used to have them. Because traditional women are seen as the antithesis to a lot of liberal dogmas, but also liberal indoctrination. And so I decided to do this show, guys, as a parroting to the show that I did earlier today with Coach Greg Adams, or more or less talking about the philosophy of the free agent lifestyle. That's why men are beginning to become free agent, because he watched this. Dr. William Glasser said that when it comes down to the elements that are necessary to help a man become successful, Dr. Glasser said it's power, fun, freedom, belonging, and survival. And so the two elements that Coach Greg Adams talks about is power, fun, and freedom. That's consistent with Dr. William Glasser's choice theory. And when men get their needs met, then they become the better versions of themselves. Guys, we're going to drop the link in a minute. We're going to allow the panel to come on and have a conversation. Have you dated women like Amber Heard? And also, based on the information that I provided for you, as I said earlier, it's never their fault. It's never their fault. And that's why men are beginning to travel abroad. That's why men are beginning to date women from other countries like South Africa, like Colombia, like Venezuela, like Kenya, Nigeria. They're dating foreign women, not saying the foreign women are perfect, not saying the foreign women can't have game, but because foreign women are raised in cultures where they've been socialized to honor and respect men. And men, when they get their needs met, And when they're treated well, they become the best versions of themselves. But what you guys are seeing now permeating once again, guys, is meta madness. The word meta madness comes from the word metacognitions. Metacognitions means to be thinking about something. What are you thinking about? So the link has been dropped, I think. So let me show you guys something. Yeah. So that's where meta madness comes from. Metacognition involves knowing yourself as a learner. It's knowing your strengths and your weaknesses as a learner. It helps you identify what those strengths are. But see, the problem is now with so many modern women, they can't identify their strengths because you have so many simp hyenas. You got a lot of simp hyenas that assuage them in their bad behaviors. And because they assuage them in their bad behaviors, they will never see the error of their ways. The Ingram experience said it better. He said that lions cannot lead hyenas. Lions symbolize masculinity, but hyenas symbolize chaos. I'm going to say it again. Lions symbolize masculinity, but hyenas symbolize chaos. Yeah. So the link has been dropped, guys. Let's have a conversation. I know the game going to be popping in a few minutes. I know guys are getting ready for the game. And you're right, Luke Cage, she is a sick individual. What normal person thinks of pooping on one's own bed? You're right. Sweet Lulu Bean said that innocent men should insist on televising sensitive cases like this. We should have been able to watch the R. Kelly and Bill Cosby trials so that we can know for sure that they received due process. Well, you grew up in a country, sweetie, where the women honor and respect the men, unlike here in America. They don't do it. Shout out to my man, Chicago Rilla. How you doing, brother? And you're right. It's fire for my mind. Hold tight. No doubt. Fire
for your mind. The kosher tradition.
We got to have that kosher fire to burn out the impurities that many are dealing with today in this cycle of something called meta madness, because people like the metacognitions to see the issues they are dealing with. Until you can self-reflect and see the error of your way, until you can do or say the song in the past, say, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. Michael Jackson said it. I'm asking him to change his ways. You will never have a balanced mindset. You will always be in a state of distress. And we live in a world now, guys, when men begin to hold women accountable, because see, men, we're going to always be held accountable. Then they can't hear the truth and they become mad because they'll say you hate women. They'll say you hate black women. And they say that because they don't want to change their behaviors. And so to the proponents that talk about community, they say, oh, let's have a community. But you can't have a community without accountability. You can't have a community without self-reflection. You can't have a community where there are so many competing factors that are trying to derail something as precious as family. Men that are masculine tend to think more in patriarchal terms. I've always said before in the past that honorable men, righteous men do not abuse power. Honorable men protect and love their women and their children. But a man can be a man where he's constantly jostling for power in the relationship. Relationships are about unison. Relationships are about relating. Relationships are about submitting to the mission of a man, but you can't submit to the mission if you're trying to sabotage the mission. Because submit just means I agree. Men and women both submit. She submits to his phallus. He submits to her vagina. He submits by putting his life on the line. She submits by nurturing his seed. It's a duality. But the problem that many modern women have is submitting or submitting to the authority of their husbands. They don't want to do it because they want egalitarian relationships where they have equal power in that said relationship. And so, guys, the link has been dropped. He said the hyena symbol symbolizes a degenerate
mentality sick and so-called female. Yes, it is. It's wild. It's very wild, D. It's wild. It's very pernicious. It's very diabolical. And also, it doesn't want structure. The spirit of the hyena. And it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger as time goes by. That's why we have these shows. Once again, in these very turbulent times. Thank you, KP, for KC5. No doubt. I try to drop them gems, brother. No doubt. And once again, guys, the link has been dropped. If you guys want to come in and have a conversation, the link has been dropped. If you want to talk about the Amber Heard case, let's have a conversation. So when I say you said D submit to her vagina, what I mean by that, and I'm going to explain it, my point is when people come together in compilation, they both have to agree. If you look up the synonym or a synonym of the word submit, it means to agree. That's what it means. So in more clear terms, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about power. Submission has many connotations. But when you look at a vagina and when you look at a man's phallus, she submits by allowing that man to enter her. But he also agrees that, he's going to enter her as well. And so submit just means I agree. It's a duality and it is an exchange. But Taylor Josh said that where there is darkness, crimes will be committed. You can't blame he who committed the crime, but rather he committed the darkness. Interesting. Where there is darkness, crimes will be committed. You can't be committed to the crime, but rather, yes, right, no doubt. D said penetration / into her is not submission. We disagree. That's fair. I respect your opinion. That's your opinion. We disagree. But once again, if you look up what submission means, submission is not limited to one connotation. The word submit has many meanings. One of the issues with submission means to agree, but also it means to submit to authority and power. Contextually and conceptually, depending on how you look at it, that's where, the framework that you're trying to frame it in could be distorted. But once again, I do respect your position, I respect your opinion, and I do respect your support as you always support me in the stream. So I appreciate it, brother. No doubt. Appreciate it. But guys, the link has been dropped. I'm going to drop it again. Guys can call in. And let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation about this Amber Heard case and this Amber Heard situation. I want to ask the few of you guys that are listening, how many of you men have been victims of dealing with women that have borderline personality disorders or any other form of personality disorders? Have you been dealing with women that you thought had a personality disorder, but you didn't know for sure? If you have, let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. Because you can't have a more perfect union if you don't know the enemy. You got to know the enemy and you got to know the symptoms associated with the enemy. Shout out to my man, James Turner. He said, Coach, I'm going to have to catch this rebroadcast because I sworn I set the reminder. Anyway, good evening to everyone. No doubt. And that's a deal right there.
That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
I appreciate it.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
I appreciate it. But let's have a conversation. How many of you men have dated Amber Heard? How many of you men have dated women that have personalities or personality traits like Amber Heard? Because if you have dated women like Amber Heard, what have it done to you mentally and physically? Can you imagine the distress that, and that's a deal, right? Can you imagine?
That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
Of Johnny Depp.
Got 5 on it.
We had a show the other night talking about injustice with Mr. Palmer, with Gary Scott, and also Carnell Smith. And, when men go through false allegations, it does something negative to the psyche of that man. That man can't recover. That man can't be the better version of himself because he's dealing with issues that have caused him distress and issues that have caused him pain.
But many times when it comes down to men and what they are looking for and what they expect or what they want, we don't talk about the struggles of men. We don't talk about their pain. We don't talk about their distress. We don't talk about their fears. And many times men begin to suffer in a silo because their mental health issues are not being taken care of. And it becomes a problem when you have men that are walking around with pain and distress, but many people turn deaf ear to their pain and distress because they feel that the struggles that the men go through have no inherent value. And when we don't value our men and hear their stories, as I said earlier, then we can't have vibrant men. The warrior class can rise no higher than the nurturers that support that said warrior class. It can rise no higher. And that's why we got to have these conversations. We got to understand what's going on, and we got to fight the distortions that's causing a lot of these men to have the pain that they're having. Gregory Scotland said that chameleons and simps assist the hyenas. That's why good men and good women have to stand together to resist them, even we that are smaller groups. I totally agree, brother. And shout out to James Turner once again for holding me down, and shout out to D-Rock Den. So no doubt. So once again, guys, the link has been dropped. The link has been dropped. Let's have a conversation. What do you think about the Amber Heard situation? Do you feel that the winning of this case has been a victory for men? Or do you feel that Johnny Depp is going to go do another level of scrutiny because Amber Heard and many like her have thinking errors that can't be addressed? So the link has been dropped. How about you, men or women, like to add to the conversation? The link has been dropped. Feel free to come in. Shout out to Luke Cage. Thank you, dear. She said, Coach, have you heard about How to Destroy a Man by Dr. Angela? Confidential. Empowering women, women step-by-step guide for destroying the male reputation and moving for power. Wow, never heard of it, sweetie. I never heard of it. And that's a deal, right?
That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
Let me actually look it up now.
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Got 5 on it.
I appreciate it. You said How to Destroy a Man. Okay, let me check that out. How to Destroy a Man. Esther Villar wrote a book, Luke Cage, I don't know if you ever heard of it, called The Manipulated Man. How to Destroy a Man. So you know what? You just gave me an idea. So let's look into that. Hold tight. Yeah, she didn't get a lot of love, though. But I see the book, How to Destroy a Man. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, hold on. Esther Villar. And Esther Villar went through a lot of scrutiny, guys, for the book that she wrote called On How to Destroy a Man. So actually, we're going to use this as a segue, guys. We're going to use this as a segue. And Lulu Bean just gave me a good point of reference. So let's look into this. Hopefully they won't give me no strike, but we're going to look into it. All right, so hold tight. Thank you once again, sweet Lulu Bean. Gregory Scott said that Luke, there are more than one. Crimson Chris spoke of multiple last week. Okay. Coach and clinician, one. Oh yeah, no doubt. Well, Rock Den stars, feel free to come in, brother. I would love to hear your support. The Rock Den, please come in, brother. I would love to hear your position on this turbulent case with Amber Heard and Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, because this is something that needs to be addressed. But feel free to pop in, guys. The links have been dropped.
I know guys are getting ready for the game at some point, and I get it, but I'm grateful to everyone that supported me, the men and the women. Thank you to Sweet Lulu Bean, Luke Hazley, and all the other brothers. And thank you also to the brothers that disagree with me. I can be wrong. I'm okay with being wrong. If someone got to disagree with me, that's fine. We don't all, I could be wrong. I'm not perfect. So I appreciate it, man. So, D, if you like to pop in, brother, I'd love to hear from you. I know you're a therapist like myself. But in the meantime, let's look at this, guys. Hold tight. Once again, fair use. Fair use. Shout out to Troy. Top Gun said that Monique is going to take attention away from the women. The granted comedians in the service of something else. That's on Barry White. Man, you funny, man. You are so funny. No doubt. You're a funny dude. You're extremely funny, man. All right, guys, let's look at this. And The Rock, then, feel free to drop in, brother, at some point.
What a great advantage a man.
Okay, all right. MC Recover, hold on, brother. I'm going to pause you. I'm going to mute you while I'm playing this. Hold on for a minute, right? Hold on, MC Recover. Hold tight.
Can have over.
Actually, let me put fair use. Fair use, guys. This is fair use. Fair use, guys. I'm going to get ready to check these Celtics out in a minute. Fair use, fair use. But this is a great segue to what Sweet Lulu Bean, Luke Hazley was talking about, how to destroy a man. Great segue. Hold tight.
For women.
And guys, if you have not read the book, go check out the book called The Manipulated Man by Esther Villar. She got a lot of negative pushback for that book. But anytime men begin to tell the truth and women act as our allies, those women are held under scrutiny. Actually, some people banned her book from certain places.
If he only knew what cold and calculating thoughts are going through her mind, while her eyes are brimming with tears. Men have been trained and conditioned by women, not unlike the way Pavlov conditioned his dogs, into becoming their slaves. Instead,
and one of the ways that narcissists and borderlines condition you guys is through tears. Men are doers by nature. Men are doers. The masculine is doing. And many times they will condition you through their tears. And if you're not astute, you will become a slave to her emotions. That's why you got to stand on principles over emotion, because a righteous woman is not a slave to her feelings. She knows how to control her feelings because she understands that her feelings can be like wildfire. So keep listening.
Instead of probing the depth of woman's mysterious psyche, mysterious only because there is nothing behind it, they should study their own psyche. It is quite incredible that men, whose desire for knowledge is unbounded in every other field, are really totally blind to these facts, that they are incapable of seeing women as they really are, with nothing else to offer but a vagina, 2 breasts. Someday it will dawn on man that woman does not read the wonderful books with which he has filled his libraries, and though she may well admire his marvelous works of art in museums, she herself will rarely create, only copy.
Shout out to D-Rock Den. He says, support as I should. And I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, sir, for your kindness. I really appreciate it. Hold tight, guys. It's for the business. This is the MC Recovery. I want you to add to the conversation.
Women have preserved this baby look for as long as possible so as to make the world continue to believe in the darling, sweet little girl she once was, and she relies on the protective instinct in man to make him take care of her. When more women become civilized enough to stop mistreating men? When will they cease from training their lovers to become providers, merely because they have the power to do so? As long as they continue as they are, men have no alternative to polygamy. By the age of 12 at the latest, most women have decided to become prostitutes. Or, to put it another way, they have planned a future for themselves which consists of choosing a man and letting him do all the work. In return for his support, they are prepared to let him make use of their vagina at certain given intervals. There are men who carefully maneuver a large limousine out of the garage at 8 o'clock every morning. Others leave an hour earlier, traveling in a middle-class sedan. Still others leave when it is not yet light, wearing overalls and carrying lunch boxes to catch buses, subways, or trains to factories or building sites. By a trick of fate, it is always the latter, the poorest, who are exploited by the least attractive women. If a young man gets married, starts a family, and spends the rest of his life working at a soul-destroying job, he is held up as an example of virtue and responsibility. The other type of man, living only for himself.
And basically, guys, that man is a utility. You heard what the woman said a minute ago. Men are supposed to serve women. Let's go back and look at this clip, and this parrots to what we're talking about. It's a difference between a woman that's kosher in her thoughts. That woman does things that are fit and proper. She does not seek to exploit men. She knows that she can be a slave to her nature. But then there are women that are carnal hypergams. We're going to talk about it at some point. And those women use men at their own disdain.
Where do men go if they get abused at home by a woman? What, like, refuge or shelters is there for men?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? I don't even know.
I don't know, I'm not gonna lie.
And that's the problem, bro. We don't know. What service is there for a man who gets stopped seeing his child? What services for him? I wouldn't family court. What kind of service can you get? Like help mentally that he's going through depression and stuff?
Because women don't understand what that does to us, man.
None. And that's where the problem actually lies.
Women aren't the only prize. Men are.
Yes, she is. Women are we have intrinsic value. We are the prize. Like,
what?
Men go to work for women.
Wait, what?
Yeah, why do you go to work? To pay bills for your woman?
No, for myself.
Somehow men think that women lose value when they've had multiple partners.
Quick question. Why is it that women feel men that are 5'11", slightly portly, and make between $40,000 and $65,000 a year have less value than men who are 6'5" with a washboard stomach and $1 million in the bank? Answer that one for me. It's called standards, and both sides do it. That is all.
Sean Whitehorn, thank you, brother. Sean, I want you to come on, brother. We were in Brazil together. You are a therapist like myself. Shout out to my man, Sean Whitehorn. He said that, kosher, you know I'm a licensed therapist as well. Yes, sir, I do. And have a track, a diagnosis of borderline, and I have a diagnosis. Oh, really? A borderline personality disorder. You are spot on as usual. Bringing in relationship with someone with a diagnosis can be emotionally taxing, but it's not impossible if you seek to understand it. Wow. And that's a deal, right?
That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal,
Sean,
right?
I want you to come on in a minute, man. If you got time,
right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
But I'd love to hear your position. We were in Brazil together, and yeah, man, you're correct. It can be very draining. Hold tight, MC Recover. I got you, brother. Hold tight. Friends, just looking at this real quick. A few more minutes. About 1 minute, 2 minutes.
Working only for himself. Doing first one thing and then another simply because he enjoys it and because he has to keep only himself. Sleeping where and when he wants.
And that's the free agent lifestyle. That's what Coach Greg Adams postulates. Free agent lifestyle means living your life on your own terms, not being beholden to the system or a woman, but you're just living your life for you. You don't really care about what nobody else do. You're not caught up in the fantasy called love, because we know that love is just a fantasy. It's a feeling. We know that love and relationships should always supersede love, because there are times when you don't feel like being in love, but because you honor and respect the mission of the relationship, you continue to push through. So, Sean, at some point, brother, you want to come on, pop in for a few minutes, and we're going to end the stream. And after MC Recovering Wellens and I talk, and get ready for this game. Hold tight.
And facing woman when he meets her, on equal terms and not as one of a million slaves, is rejected by society. The free, unshackled man has no place in its midst. A man who wants to gain power over a woman must follow the example of women and condition his sex drive. If he succeeds in becoming as cold as she can no longer bait him with sex into the role of provider. At most, she could offer herself as an equal sex partner, as dependent on him as he is on her. If men could abstain from sex at judicious intervals, they might even succeed in normalizing the female sex drive, even make women desire them more than the other way around. Male aggressiveness consists in asking a woman to have intercourse and waiting for her to say yes, or a definite no. Skillful tacticians enhance their chances of making out by distributing their attentions among several women at a time, one version of playing the field, thus increasing their statistical chances for a favorable answer, depending on circumstances. This is the height of male aggressiveness that is tolerated. Genuine aggressiveness, rape, men have forbidden themselves by law.
And that's the difference. That is the difference. That's the difference that you guys have between free agent lifestyle men that see the world for what it is. They see relationships for what it is. It doesn't mean that they don't want to be in a relationship, but they don't live their lives solely for a relationship. They live their lives for themselves. Guys, go check out the show I did earlier from that clip with James Turner and Dr. Ronald Neal. And it was talking about the free agent lifestyle. Are you one? Because the free agent lifestyle actually trumps or more or less parallels or parrots Dr. William Glasser. How are you doing, brother MC Recovery Wellens? How are you doing, sir? And what do you think about the stream? And it's always your fault. That's something that we see a lot in society. So what do you think about the show and the stream? And what do you think about the Amber Heard case and that loaded question?
Well, you know, I'm just here kicking back on my 58th birthday. So,
happy birthday, man.
Happy birthday, brother. So I got 30 more sit-ups to do.
Right.
Shoot. What I think about the Amber Heard case, that was finally a chance for America to see that we ain't always the one that's displaying the chaos and domestic violence, that it can come in so many ridiculous forms. That's what that case proved. That case proved that you know the violence she was doing on Johnny Depp was based on like she had the camera out, she kept antagonizing him, kept just starting it, and I do like the part where you spoke on that cognitive distancing, because what I saw in that, I saw a blaze of flame of where I always had to give in when it gets to the place of me trying to bring some knowledge to the conversation, some common sense, and it's like they just totally black out and they start crying, and then I give in, and that is what I saw when I was dealing with these last 2 or 3 relationships I was in right in the past. That they would give in, that they would cry. And it was one more thing that I remember what my great grand sponsor said. See, I got a 12-step sponsor. And then what his sponsor said speaking at a meeting once, and he said it in front of an audience of about 200 something people. Women, stop using your vagina with these men that's in recovery as a bargaining chip. So on that tape that you just let us listen to, that was some of the things that that's what I look out for. So it's more like when you've been in multitude of toxic relationships, it's like I'm critically like damaged, and then I got to rework on myself because I'm on guard. I'm on guard. I can't trust the next female because I'm thinking that this female is going to parrot some of the things I've seen in the last 2 or 3 relationships. And if I see it, then I start acting like a person that got borderline disorder, and then I run off. Because if I see it, I'd rather break it off before I get hurt. So,
Right. Sean Whitehorn, how you doing, sir? And how would you like to add to the conversation about the psychopathologies that are persisting in our culture, but also the triumphant victory of Johnny Depp? How would you like to add to the conversation, brother?
Well, first, I was greetings, brother. I definitely like to say greetings and salutations to you.
No doubt. Blessings.
I think where I would add to it is such as we know, mental health, diagnoses of mental health, of course, it can be a daunting task at times.
Yes.
We were talking about, borderline personality disorder. And oftentimes I'll ask people when I'm trying to explain the disorder, I will say, which would you rather have, borderline diabetes they would say, or diabetes? They would say, well, borderline, because I'm not all the way diabetic. I said, which one would you rather have, borderline high blood pressure or high blood pressure? And they would always say borderline. And I oftentimes tell them when it relates to the personality disorders, borderline is the one that you would likely not want to have because you're sitting on the cusp of all the others. It's a combination of. And so I think with Amber Heard, her diagnosis obviously played out in her relationship. Me, as someone who suffers from borderline personality disorder, and also, as I mentioned, as a licensed therapist, I would see it play out in my relationships. Relationships with borderlines. But one thing that I've learned over the years, you hit on a very good point. I'm 56 years old now.
Yes, sir.
And I can honestly say my symptoms began to reduce as I began to age. I'm currently in therapy. I've been seeing the same therapist now for several years.
Yes, sir.
And that's one of the things that we talk about is that over time, as I get older, some of my symptoms are, reducing on their own. But I can honestly say that being borderline, one of the things that I tell any woman before we begin to enter into a relationship is I'm very upfront about the disorder. And then I ask them, do us a favor, do a little research, and then come to me because, every borderline doesn't have all the same symptoms. The symptoms are not always going to be the same.
Yes, sir.
So I always tell them, look it up, come to me, talk to me about what my symptomology is. And I think that's, although yet and still I'm not successful in my relationships, although I think that's one of the things that'll help if you're dating someone who's borderline, if they've been diagnosed, is to do your research on it and ask questions. I think that's the one thing I would want to add, because it's not impossible to love a borderline, but it is definitely a daunting task.
Let's go and you share as much as you want to share, Sean, but let's talk about the trauma that you went through that caused you to become borderline, and you share what you feel comfortable sharing. But I never knew, Sean, you had borderline. I would have never thought you were diagnosed with that, because normally it's a byproduct of trauma, abandonment.
As mine is.
Okay, share with the audience what you feel comfortable sharing. How did yours come into full manifestation, and how did it impact relationships with the women that you were dealing with?
I would have to say that there's two components that led to it. One was early sexual trauma, childhood sexual trauma.
Boom.
And
that's it.
Without a doubt.
That's it.
And what so specifically how it really impacted before I knew it, it was at the hands of two very dark-skinned females. They were both sisters.
Wow.
And this occurred for about 2.5, 3 years of my early development.
Wow.
And it was so odd that two things that would happen. One of the things that would occur with their inappropriate behavior was kissing. You know, there was never any penetration because I was very young. I couldn't penetrate them, so that never happened. But there was some, some fraudage going on and things like that. However, one of the things that I always detested is that I had to kiss them. And I learned later on in my relationships, two things that came out. I did not like kissing women, and I would not date dark-skinned women. And I could, for the life of me, I was not able to put that together with the trauma from the past. Would not date dark-skinned women because both of these young ladies were dark. And I did not like kissing women because that was one of the things that I detested, that these two, and they were, let me see, they were probably about 7 years older than I was at the time. They were definitely mid-teenagers. They were 16, would be 16 and 19, I want to say, at that age. But then I think the triggering, of course, I came into the military at 17. The military is and I stayed in the military for 24 years. So, from 83 to 2007, there's a lot, unfortunately, that I had to experience in the military that I think that really triggered it. But where it played out in my relationships, I've been married 3 times.
Wow.
I've had 3 failed marriages, without a doubt, 3 failed marriages.
Wow.
And this is all before understanding that I was suffering from borderline personality disorder. A lot of times I would attribute it to my post-traumatic stress disorder. And even as a therapist, just like as a lawyer, a great lawyer would never represent himself, nor would a good therapist ever attempt to diagnose him or herself.
Right.
So I would see it play. I've had 3 failed marriages, a lot of sexual promiscuity in my young age, just multiple women. Just one of the reasons why I think I dealt with so many women is it made me feel better about myself. And what I found out in therapy was that the dealing with so many women was because it gave me the one thing that those 2 young ladies took from me was control.
Control, boom, right.
Yep, it gave me control.
Yes, sir, right.
Because I could manipulate these women. I could have one come in the bed when the other one's, and so I had that control, but it just played out over the years and failed relationship after failed relationship. And I think my last relationship is when I really started to realize, because I had a lot of aggressive behavior, because you think about the posturing and being that, making my physique bigger than it is, to control the situation. I became a drill sergeant. As I mentioned, and I'll be brief, I spent 24 years in the military, very successful. Retired as a first sergeant. I was a drill sergeant. I was a recruiter, the whole 9. I was a first sergeant. And one of the reasons I realized I was so successful in the military was that, for lack of a better word, in many ways, the military rewards and encourages some forms of aggressive behavior, some forms of dysfunctionality. You have to be successful. And for some of us, I wouldn't say that as a whole. And this was the Army that I spent. So, but yeah, I saw it play out in my relationships. I saw it play out. I was able to, if I were working in corporate America, I would not have survived. In the military, it made sense. It was like, hey, this is a real soldier. He's aggressive. He's forward thinking, but if I were in corporate America, some of those behaviors I exhibited in the military I would have never lasted in corporate America. So I think that's kind of sums it up for me. And also, I would add medication. I've been on medication. As a therapist, one of the things that I would tell my patients all the time is I would say, hey, look, I'm not just a therapist. I'm also a patient. And I would tell all of my patients that. And I think one of the things that's really helped me over the years is really gaining a strong understanding of pharmacology. Medication compliance is so important. Understanding medication. So, and some of the holistic things as well, because everything, we don't necessarily need medication for everything, but learning some of the holistic treatments, learning to understand your diagnosis, identify those behaviors, that kind of sums it up for me.
That's
Coach,
excellent. That's excellent. And it goes back to what I said about comorbidity. You had the coalescing of not only post-traumatic stress disorder, but also with the borderline personality disorder as well. It's a diagnosis that can be very daunting, to say the least. But as you go and continue to ruminate with your struggles, and Sean, I'm gonna do a show on this, man. I'm gonna ask to critique it because a lot of times we don't talk about the struggles of men. We think that sexual abuse is one directional, but it's not. Men go do sexual abuse probably at the same rate of women do, and molestation, but we don't talk about it or we minimize it. And
if I could add, Kosher, we also oftentimes we negate the fact, because I was never molested by men. It was by two females, and we always negate the fact that it's just as traumatic. When women or young girls do this to young boys, it is just as traumatic as if a man is doing it to a young girl.
Yes,
and
sir,
we negate that. We think about it as such as, I heard the jokes of, as I got older, oh man, I wish somebody would have did that to me when I was 12. I wish we had those jokes, but we don't realize it is just as destructive.
Right. It is just as destructive. And sadly, a lot of men have been part of it. Actually, I'm going to do a show, Sean, and I'm going to use your story as a template for that story. I got a show that's been brewing, and we're going to talk about sexual abuse and sexual molestation and how it impact a lot of our men, because, many people go do dissociative issues when they become touched. And then also many times they develop maladaptive behaviors as well. You think about R. Kelly. He was Robert Kelly, but the trauma that he went through is like he became a deviant and he became R. Kelly. And we tend to minimize what he went through. We look at R. Kelly after the fact, but we don't look at R. Kelly before the fact. And some will say, "Oh, he's a demon. He needs," but you don't. But see, people that say that, they don't understand how molestation impacts people. Some people become hypersexual. Some become hyposexual. I mean, they become very rigid. You became hypersexual.
Very hyper.
Right, you had a lot of failed marriages. How did the sex make you feel, Whitehorn? Did the sex make you feel full? Hold tight. Shout out to my man Top Gun for that $5 super sticker. And he said this is why the Culture Collision, his platform, is so important. And that's on the manosphere. No doubt, you funny, man. But did it make you? Did sex make you feel full? Because I'm sure there was a level of emptiness. Did you ever endure emptiness, and did sex make you feel full?
I would think that early on it definitely filled me. It felt great. The ability to conquer, the ability to manipulate, all those things initially in my younger days. I mean, it was a drug like no other. I'll say that, to say the least. But as I got older, that's when it became more challenging emotionally, where I started to move away from a lot of the sexual promiscuity, the multiple partners, the just all of that I engaged in with women. Because it no longer, as we talk about it in therapy, my therapist and I, it no longer filled that void. In fact, it made it worse. I can think of times when I have sex with a woman, and literally in the beginning because my thing was all about initial penetration. When I initially penetrated her, that was another notch in the belt. There was a numbers count. It felt great. But I would be in the act, couldn't wait for the act to be over.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't wait for the sex to be over.
Wow.
Once it started, okay, I accomplished it. I got it. And then it would be like, I just couldn't wait for it to be over. Mm-hmm. And so it got to a point to where me now as a 56-year-old man, sex no longer motivates me. It doesn't do what it once did. Mm-hmm. And so I can honestly say early on, absolutely. Yeah, and as we mentioned, our symptoms begin to decrease for many of us as we get older. And I'm benefiting from that. I can honestly say I'm benefiting from that.
Right.
But the sex in the beginning, it was the best medication to me in my mind. But as I got older, that just kind of went away. I can honestly say that hypersexual behavior is long since been extinct. But yet I still am unable to connect. Most of my people oftentimes they say, man, you travel all over the world, you 6-figure guy, you got all of this, I'm halfway decent. Look, I'm at least a 5. And they always say, why don't you have a woman? And women ask me all the time, how are you single? And I tell them it's deeper than that. It's deeper than what you see on the surface. It affects me now. I'm 56 years old and I am painfully single. Painfully.
Wow, that's wow. I would ask you a question, Sean. Some will argue that borderlines know what they're doing. You know, they're known as being manipulative. Did you know what you were doing, or was it a lot of it unconscious motivation, or was it a combination of both?
Definitely a combination of both. You know, I can honestly say some of my motivations were very unconscious, where I didn't realize where they were coming from. But then a lot of that behavior, I clearly knew it was wrong. I clearly knew what I was doing. You know, like the push and pull you mentioned earlier. I remember my last relationship. I was not my last ex-wife, who is literally my best friend. My last ex-wife is literally my best friend. But my last real relationship, that push and pull culture, I'm not joking. And she was a very intelligent woman. She was a doctoral student. She was brilliant. And when I tell you, if I had to count how many times we broke up in the 3 years we were together, I'm going to say, and you'll know it's true, or other people may not understand it. I'm going to say in those 3 years had to be 15 to 22 times that I was like, this is over. I'm done. Can't do it. But the minute she was gone, oh my God, that desire to bring her back was so overwhelming. And there were times when I was pushing her away that I knew in my mind, I really don't want to push you away.
Right.
I know I got to get you out of here before you kick me to the curb.
Right.
Where I would end them before they. But that push and pull with many who suffer from borderline personality disorder, that's one of the hardest parts of being of loving someone with borderline personality disorder.
Right. You know, for the women that are borderline, they say the sex is intense. Not trying to get you to brag on your penis, but did the women say they got sexually addicted to you?
I can honestly say, and definitely not in a braggadocious fashion, I would oftentimes say I had no limits. There was nothing I would not do with a woman. There was nothing off the table with a woman. I mean, as I would always say, baby girl, if you like it, damn it, I love it. And so I can honestly say, as it related to me being intimate with women, there was simply nothing that was off the table. If they involve another female, if they wanted to do a threesome with another male, if they wanted it to be oral, if they wanted to be anal, if they wanted pain, if they wanted, you name it, if they wanted it, I wasn't going to say no.
Wow.
So whether or not, so I can't brag on it, but I can just simply say, didn't exist in my vocabulary as it related to giving them what they wanted. However, go back to what I said. Many times I couldn't wait for it to be over. I couldn't wait for it to be over.
That's sad, man. That's really sad. Shout out to Asora C for that $5 super sticker. He said, "Little something for the therapeutic plate." What do you think? Before I go back with you, Sean, MC Recover, I don't want to. Did you say what you need to say, brother? I think you did talk earlier. Did you talk? You talked earlier. Okay, good. I didn't want to make sure I minimized you. But when you think about this, when you think about undiagnosed mental illnesses, Sean, what percentage of women or Western women, in your opinion, you think are walking around with unresolved mental issues, but we just see it as normal? If you had to guesstimate.
If I had to guess, and I'm going to be very conservative in this guess, I'm going to say 40 to 50%. I believe that it's more than likely higher because women endure so much trauma in so many ways. You know, whether it's the amount of trauma that women experience. But I if it were up to me, I'd probably say 50% of the women that are walking around are probably suffering. And as you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. There are different types of mental health disorders, and some are more severe than others. And so, I mean, it's think about it like this. Just about every woman that we meet, what's one of the common fabrics of their story? Sexual molestation.
Molestation, right.
About I would ask every brother who's listening, ask your woman, was she ever violated sexually or the average woman would tell yes.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I see it all the time, man. It was a young lady. She was going through some things that broke my heart. I felt sorry for her. And, you know, that comes from some of these women getting with these dusty men. But then on top of that, too, Sean, it's a cycle. They go through the vicarious trauma of their parents. But believe it or not, I've had a lot of these men that have been sexually abused by men and women. You know, we think let's do a guesstimation about a number of men that you think has been through sexual abuse. What would you say the percentage is if you had to guesstimate?
I would venture to say, I would probably say about 30% of all adult males in there. But I would also say that obviously the vast majority of their sexual trauma would be in their formative years. But I would, and the numbers likely higher. But I'm just going to go look over my I don't know 11 years as a therapist, just kind of looking back at the sexual histories, the sexual traumas of. But I would say probably 30% of all the men that are walking around have had some. But again, here's the thing, Coach. A lot of us don't see it as sexual trauma. A lot of us don't see it as sexual trauma. When you're 12 and the 16-year-old girl says, "Let me show you what oral sex is like." We don't make that young man may not have saw that as a traumatic event,
right?
Sexual behavior. So I would say that probably 30% of all men have experienced some form of sexual trauma, especially in formative years.
Yeah, I totally agree, and many times it goes undiagnosed and minimized because we tend to minimize the sadness of men. Sean, we were in Brazil last year around this time. We had a great time. Had an awesome time meeting you and a lot of other brothers. But, Kevin Samuels' death recently showed us unresolved thinking errors, but definitely maybe some unresolved mental illness. What was your take on that? And we're going to end the stream in a minute because I know the game is on. But what was your take on when Kevin passed and so many laughed at and more or less mocked him in his death? Did that cause you to be in a level of distress when you saw it?
It absolutely did. And me being someone who was an avid Kevin Samuels listener, absolutely. And to hear some of the venom of which people spoke about him, namely women, and a lot of your beta males and your simp males, to hear some of the venom and the way that they talked about him, and it brought up a lot of it elicited a lot of emotions in me. That the fact that one, we're raised, we don't speak ill of the dead and things of that nature. Right. But MC Recovery, he had a little part of, you just talked about it a minute ago when we talk about how we're living good, we're, for lack of a better word, we're in recovery, but then something happens that triggered it. I think Brother Recovery mentioned something about being around women who could trigger some of those behaviors. So yeah, when Kevin Samuels passed, it really, I think it was proof. I'll say this. It was proof just how right he was.
Right. And you're right. And not only how right he was, but also, Sean, to the cognitive dissonance. Also to the cognitive dissonance that many have. And Sean, that goes back to a term called metacognitions. It means to think about what you're thinking about, but also I created a term called meta madness because it basically means what were you thinking about to have allowed yourself to get in that predicament. We're beginning to see it over and over again. The meta madness is morphing in society. And I've always said, Sean, we can't form a more perfect union if we have unresolved mental illness. I said that the simps, the beta males are the pacifists to some of these negative behaviors that women are having. Sean, you and I grew up in a time, man, in the 90s where women were more respectful and women had shame. They had shame. And you're like a cusper. You're like a boomer and a X, you're on the cusp. But, the woman said that men try to shame women for having a bunch of bodies. That was a shameful behavior. Men are not wired. Most men are not wired to have the dog. Right. The woman being with a bunch of men. We're just not wired. And people say, well, men are not wired to have thoughts of the woman being penetrated by multiple men. We understand women got a past. We don't like it if we care a lot about it. We try to tolerate as much as we can. But, now up is down, Sean, and down is up. And the things that made sense a couple of years ago doesn't make sense anymore.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the constant the constant germination of a very defunct culture where people can't see themselves and they're not willing to see themselves. Because when you rejoice over the death of a person, then that's problematic, in my opinion.
Yeah, culture. Should I remember 17 years ago because I have 22 years of recovery. At 5 years of recovery, I ran into some major depression to where I lost the job, the car was broke down, and then I kept missing my therapist, so I got another therapist across town just in case if I missed her. And stuff came out from being mass uh, stuff came out from someone touching me at a young age. But what really came out, like a guy here, Sean said, that blew me away was my mother would have these babysitters, and it's 5 of us, and they would have me and my brothers and sisters playing house in a real way. Do like you're the husband, you're the wife.
right, playing house,
and it
right.
blew me away when that came out of my mouth. I went back and I said, "Woo!" And I already did a 4-step inventory, but that didn't even come out on my inventory. That's how far it was buried.
Right, repression.
It was buried that far. I didn't did a 4-step inventory, and I'm like, whoa. So
well, recovery. Can I ask you a question, brother? In that whole recovery, think about how many people that you've encountered. You know how we say, when we're attending a meeting, never deal with her past. Think about the many people that you encountered in their addiction. How many of those do you think were part of their trauma history was sexual trauma, and later showed up in their addictions? What are your thoughts on that?
It is a lot. It's a lot because in recovery, just put it this way, I wasn't. When I went to mental health at that time, I was a request from some people at my home group meeting that go over there and see what's wrong with you, because I had the type of depression where I was sleeping like 2 or 3 hours a day. I was leaking, but physically my body knew to fellowship. So I didn't went to enough meetings that I was on automatic pilot for getting my recovery. But soon after all that passed, then I went to the sex addiction, and I told my sponsor, you know what? I don't need to sponsor nobody no more. Because I had magazines, videos, other women. And then I had to recover from that in the midst of my regular recovery.
Wow.
So it's like magazine by magazine, video by video. I had it, and he gave me a steps 6 and 7 to write on my character defects and my shortcomings. So and I said, "Ooh," because I was really serious about not going to no more AA meetings, CA meetings, because of that hole that you spoke about. Because it was filling up something that I thought I was looking for. But when it's away, then it really had me feeling like I was on drugs. So drugs and alcohol and stuff. So
I'm gonna ask you this question, Sean, then we're gonna end the stream, man. I'm gonna sign off. And guys, thank you for listening. I'm gonna check the game out. We'll use the rest of this time to relax. But you said you begin to get better with your borderline personality disorder. Do you still get triggered now by dark-skinned women? Do you still get triggered?
Absolutely. It's no secret. We have this term in some of the travel groups. I'm known for saying I prefer banana yellow. I, to this day, still have no sexual attraction to dark-skinned women. None. None.
Right.
And I have to attribute it from the trauma because, don't get me wrong. I see dark-skinned women all the time who are absolutely gorgeous, but as far as me having that physical sexual attraction, it simply does not exist. I think in my lifetime, I may have dated. I dated one dark skinned woman probably about 20 something years ago, but it was really sexual. It was all about sex. She had an unusual sexual appetite. But to this day, I still don't date dark skinned women to this very day.
You know what, Sean? Your story is powerful, man. I'm gonna do a show coming up, man. I'm not going to talk about the title. I want to have you back again. I will be emailing you, and I want you. We're gonna go from the formative years at your early age. Man, your story is powerful, man. I never knew in a million years, brother, you went through that, man. But you got a very powerful story. I think I'm going to use your show. I think I'm going to use your show as like a. You don't mind your name being on the screen when I use it, do you?
None at all.
Okay.
Nothing at all. Nothing to hide. Remember. That's where guilt and shame is what binds us. Right? That guilt and shame, MC Recovery can tell you that guilt and shame is what keeps us addicts. That guilt and shame of our sexual traumatic history, I have nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't do it. They did. I don't know how old they'd be now. These two would definitely be in their mid-60s. But if they were watching this, I have a very unusual last name. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm gonna do a show on it. I'm gonna clip it, and then I'm gonna use this show, and we're gonna use this show as a reference point, and we're gonna add to that. So I'm gonna take this segment and break it down, and I'm gonna do a reaction to it. But then I'm gonna bring you back, and we're gonna make it comprehensive, because I never knew you went through it, man. And your story is he said your mom is black.
Yes, she is black, and I love black women. I didn't say I hate black women.
No. He's not shaming you. He's saying the foolishness that they say. He's not trying to shame you.
Oh, okay.
He's trying to say,
I do hear that a lot of times. And
right.
And I always say, look, I come from a black woman. I love black women. I love the black woman.
Right.
I'm just not interested in that aspect.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's being funny. He's being funny. Because I was thinking the same thing, but your mama black. I was thinking the same thing. Let me ask you a question. Being a borderline, are you sensitive to criticism? And do you go do transference or or do you deal with counter transference with your clients? Because some say you need dialectal. Well, actually, you know what? I'm gonna save those questions. I'm gonna save it. We're gonna save it for the next show.
And we'll talk about some of the therapeutic processes that I went through.
Okay, we're gonna save it, man. I might bring a couple of brothers that've been through pathologies as well. MC Recovery to talk about his too. So I'm gonna take this show and clip it. I'm gonna do a show on it, and then I'm gonna bring you back. And it's going to be a part 2. So once again, man, I appreciate this, brother. I'm going to check this game out. MC Recovery, love and blessings, brother. Sean, thank you, man, for your kindness for the donation.
All right,
brother. All right, guys. All right, we're going to sign off, guys. All right.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to see you, Sean. MC Recovery, I'm about to sign off, man. Thank you for tuning in and also supporting me, brother, right? All right.
Are you a victim of brokenness and despair? A broken man is a hopeless man, and a hopeless man is a very dangerous man. Many times, many of you young men that are listening come from homes that are very toxic and very dysfunctional. And because of that, many of you have deferred your power in many ways, to the point it's led over into your social life, and many times led over into your relationships. If you guys are dealing with mental health pathologies, conscious and unconscious, come see me at kosherclinician@gmail.com. That's kosherclinician@gmail.com. It's important that you deal with your mental health in order to be a better person for yourself, your loved ones, and also your community. But because mental health is often stigmatized, many of you often suffer in silence. Don't be a victim in silence. And see me once again at kosherclinician@gmail.com. And I need you guys to remember this. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. There are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become an optimized male. And male mental health is one of those elements that's paramount to the functioning of a man. Be well.
Time to run it off. I wake up. Yeah. I wake wake up, flex, thumb down now, check, no drip this, wet. Tell him run it up, no sleep, no rest, might crash, might wreck, but first die, stretch, tell him run it up. I wake up, flex, thumb down now, check, no drip this, wet. Tell him run it up, no sleep, no rest, might crash, might wreck, but first die, stretch, tell him run it up. 9 out of 10 roll through my hands, I'm by my lonely. Turn to a savage, now my baby wants to hold me. I love my fans, don't need no friends, I got my homies.